This is not a hoax. This isn't clickbait. This is the top 10 South African albums release list for 2020. I'm Day and I'll be taking you through some of last year's hottest slaps that honestly flew under the radar amidst, well, the end of the world. Obviously, a lot of people were simply too preoccupied with staying alive than keeping up with the trends in the music scene. So I'm really just here to play catch up. Dozens of projects came under consideration for this list, but we'll only be evaluating the top tier offerings. Kicking us off at number 10 is Malachi with Wicked Romance. If that name doesn't ring a bell to you, time will surely cure that. This 21-year-old R&B singer with Zimbabwean origins burst through the scene in a major way with his timeless debut, Wicked Romance. Well, if it's that great, then why is it number 10? Here's why. This kid is a chunk of diamond, for sure, but just about the roughest chunk there is. His writing is inspired, his production team does a lot of justice for his voice, but the technique is still below par for now. But put a big shiny bookmark on this kid because his EP is worth visiting at least once. At number 9 we have our first of two duos on this list, which come in the form of Solve the Problem and 808X for their collab EP, Essentials Only. This project is only 6 songs long, but if you know anything about these two internet wave label mates, you'd know that was all they needed to get their point across. Ultimately, consistency is what landed this duo on the list. Essentials Only serves as a spit take directed at MCs who feel it's enough to get by on cloud alone. I think the message is pretty clear. If you're gonna come correct. Mediocrity just won't cut it anymore. At number 8 we have the previous year's fan favorite Flame with his sophomore offering, Dead or Alive. I've personally had this album on my rotation more frequently than some of the other albums that appear further up this list, so the sonics clearly aren't the problem. The features were also pretty standard, and Flame has always been blessed to work with some of the most talented producers of our generation. So what really is the issue? To me, it feels like Flame took a bunch of well-made standalone singles, put them all in a collection and slapped the cover art on it. DOA as a body of work is incoherent and hence doesn't stand well when juxtaposed against Flame's more conceptual pieces like Clouds, Candyman. At number 7 we've got my very own hometown hero, Younger Chief with his debut album Popstar. Alright, so I've personally never met a Grootman before, but the familiarity that oozes out of this album is hella uncanny. Even though it had the latest release date, Popstar delivers some of the most solid slaps of the year. Younger showboats his writing ability as he blends his witty lyricism with his unmistakably closer aesthetic. The end result is nothing but magic. Although to be completely unbiased, I can definitely recognize that Popstar was not made for the universal audience. I just so happen to fit the target market. But I'm willing to bet anything that if you are also a hip-hop head long before streaming services were a thing, this album is definitely for you too. Nasty C comes in at number 6 with his highly anticipated third album, A Zulu Man with Some Power. My first impression of this album was so underwhelming. But as always, I'm the first to point out when I'm wrong, and damn it, I was wrong. Cause this shit grew on me, quick. The songs from the album feel like snapshots from a top billing episode. Nasty C has ascended to a high caliber of living and was definitely not afraid to share that with his listeners. But because I hopped on his wave back in the Price City era, I can't help but feel how jaded this latest project sounds. Listening to it feels like, if you ever had the chance to play against Messi, but this nigga was in an Argentine jersey instead of in red and blue, you're still happy to play, you just know he isn't giving it his all. At number 5, let's look at another upstart who blew through the competition last year as Elaine serenades us with her hit R&B EP, Elements. Every law has an exception, and this lady is the exception for the law of this list, and for good reason. Let me explain why. Elements was released in September 2019 independently. So why is it on this list? Well, it's because the rollout for it took a little while to gain traction, but when the buzz finally caught up to everyone in the first half of 2020, there simply was no getting away from it. After dominating the charts on iTunes and streaming platforms, Elaine has managed to snag a label deal with Columbia Records. Elements is a concise collection of love stories, the likes of which we've heard from various artists in recent years, but not quite as polished as Alain delivers it. Mr. Philip himself came back with a vengeance at number 4 with the release of his 5th studio album, Any Minute Now. Casper Nyovest, who's no stranger to controversy, welcomed the birth of his first child last year, and in typical Mufasa fashion, dedicated an album to the latest addition to his family. Any Minute Now succeeded the Kwaito-influenced album, Sweet and Short, which did not gain much pull from his core following. However, Casper managed to get some of that pull back with his latest offering, with the help of some international acts such as Anthony Hamilton, Boogie, and Bass, along with a whole host of local talent including legends like Zola, Pro, and Double HP. Casper has long since relinquished the crown of hip-hop savior, but the music on AMN sounds as good as it ever has to me. Carrying the bronze medal, we have Tumi Molekane aka Stogie T with the deluxe unmasked version for his 3rd commercial album, The Empire of Sheep. This is an album after my own heart. With a career transcending decades and a technical skill set to match, Stogie offers insight on topics young South Africans need to ponder but don't necessarily yearn for. Figurative language and fancy vocabulary come in no short supply in The Empire of Sheep, but all it really means is you need to use your head a little bit more to decipher the messages hidden in the script. But hasn't that always been the spirit of hip-hop? And now the second duo off the list, Diamonds and Flame, captured the silver prize with their collab EP, Red Light District. The synergy these guys demonstrated on this project was impeccable. It's so refreshing to hear artists who've been at the top of their game for years and still sound as hungry as the new kid on the block. Feeling like you need to do better than your last is how evolution occurs, and it's how classic albums are made. Red Light District is a project I would happily put up against any album on the market today and be satisfied regardless of the feedback. That's the kind of confidence Diamonds and Flame inspire with their not so subtle take on success and romance in the music industry. These topics are generally old and cliche when it comes to album concepts. However, the voices and penmanship behind them seem to be what all the fuss is about. And now, after the lockdown and after the tears, after the memes and after all the great music, comes the #1 album release of 2020. And before you chicken heads get excited, no, it is not this guy. It's just not. Again, clout does not equal greatness. So who is it? Well, it's actually this guy, Lungani Mabute, aka Pops Not the Father. Alright, let me explain. Actually, you know what? Fuck that. There's no explanation needed. Here's what you need to do. First, you need to pause this video. Then you need to click on the first link in the description, play this album right here, and then come back and shower me in likes and subscriptions because you're welcome. I just made your day. Not Now, Not Ever is what you just heard. The erratic brainchild of Pops Not the Father, largely produced by Internet Wave's in-house maestro, 808X. Innovation at its best and creativity in its purest form are the end result of this highly underrated masterpiece. In the past, Pops has always appeared as a second-tier player amongst his label mates. But in 2020, boy did that cocoon bust wide open with this release. The sound he created feels so new and yet so familiar all at the same time. There isn't a dull moment, not one skippable song, nor a lackluster feature on the whole album. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the perfect album. Or maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I've lost touch with what's hip and cool. What do you think? Hit the comments and share your thoughts, and again, like and subscribe for more awesome content. Until next year, if we make it to next year, peace out.